Hello and welcome everybody to the Daryl and Boo Show. I'm Boo and this is Daryl. Daryl, how was your weekend?
Hi, folks. Weekend was good. Kind of productive. My wife was up in a bit of a girls' trip up in Whistler this weekend. One of her friends, she has a bunch of friends who are, or we do, I guess, but they're kind of in the same industry as us, in the IT and IT sales. And so one of them, who actually works for Google, they've obviously allowed their employees to kind of say you can really work wherever you want to. It's going to be remote for foreseeable future. So she kind of took advantage of that and did a Airbnb place up in Whistler I think she's up there for a couple of months.
Nice.
Yeah. So and I think her plan is to travel around BC and see some parts of BC, just work from various different places over the next year or so. I thought that was kind of a good idea. But anyways, the girls all went up there and spent a weekend with her up in Whistler. So usually when that happens, in my younger days, I'd get out and go have fun, but usually I take advantage of that time and just get stuff done around the house. So I was raking the backyard after the storm. There was lots of leaves and branches and whatnot. So just generally did stuff around the house. And beautiful weekend, obviously. So I got out for a run yesterday, which was beautiful. So yeah, it's nice. How about yourself?
Yeah, cool. Well, today is my daughter's birthday. So happy birthday, Ava, if she's watching this. Yeah, I don't know if she's an avid watcher of the Daryl and Boo Show, but she can come back and watch this for the birthday shout out. But so this weekend we had a small birthday get together. Obviously, things are different right now. So within their little bubble, they have some friends across the street that they play with, and so we just basically had what they usually do, play together, but incorporated some pumpkins in there. The kids got a new trampoline, but it's new to us, not a new trampoline. So there's these, I don't know if you're familiar with spring-free trampolines.
I'm not, no.
So your traditional trampoline that you would see, when we were younger, it would be a mat and then a big circular frame, and then the springs would hold the mat to the frame. And so there's always room for error. Like if you step off that mat and your leg goes through the springs or something like that, or you get pinched by one of those springs, that's not a fun day. No. So basically these spring-free ones there's a frame, and then there's these rods that can hold tension. So you bend them and they fit under a mat, and then you can bounce on it like that. Now that, I went and I got it off of Craigslist. So, less than half the price that these things are, but the gotcha is the disassembly and assembly. So the guy that was selling it to me helped me disassemble it. So we actually had it down within 2 hours. And then I went to assemble it on my own. So I will show, here's a screenshot of what it looks like. These are the instructions that are involved here. So a few pages worth. Does it show what the actual trampoline looks like? Maybe up top here. So these are the rods that hold the tension. Right. So here's this guy, he's putting, so there's a net that goes around it that's held up by rods as well that have tension to them.
Yeah.
The key here, once this is in and you get the mat on there, you're putting these rods in. Now, there's this warning: treat any loaded rod with caution until you are sure it's properly installed or uninstalled. Keep your face well away from any loaded rod. Now, I didn't get smoked by a rod, but there's a lot of rods that go in there, and every single time you're holding it with your body weight, and it says in there, bring your body weight into it. Holding it with your body weight to get the rod underneath and into the little holder that sits in the mat. Right. Luckily, made it through without getting whipped by one of those rods snapping back at me. And the trampoline is up, and the kids are able to bounce on it. So that was my big task for the weekend there. And so in terms of total time, that was probably 4-ish hours or so.
Yeah.
expensive
Yeah,
stuff like that.
relatively hard labor by the looks of things. Now, does it have guardrails? Did I see that picture correctly? Or when you rolled scroll up a little bit there, or is
So,
that?
well, it has a net. So there's the mat, and then there's this net that goes around, and the net itself has even longer rods that go up over top, and they're secured down to the frame, but they hold up
Okay.
these. They hold up the net, and so that's kind of neat actually as well, because it's almost like multi-dimensional. You don't have to bounce up and down. It probably doesn't say you should, but you could actually bounce off the net and back in. You're not bouncing out, but you can bounce against the net and come back kind of towards the center of the trampoline.
Huh. Yeah, it's a good design because I think, yeah, I agree that obviously it's the ones with springs. It's not if, it's when. If you
Yeah.
do it enough, you're going to have some sort of casualty on those springs. So that's a great idea.
Yeah. Yeah, you can get pinched pretty good. So on Craigslist, we're looking up these things, and there's a couple ads on there for people to come by and install these trampolines for you, and I just didn't really get why there was a service until now. Like, yeah, that installation, whoever these guys are that claim to be pros to install them, have at her, and
Yeah.
they could have installed it, but that's all right. We got it up and running. After some adventures around getting the mat kind of re-stitched in a couple places and stuff, and saved a bunch of money. If folks haven't realized yet already, I'm a pretty frugal guy, so I don't like paying full price for things.
Yeah, well, with having 3 kids, I think that comes with the territory here. You don't have a lot of choice.
Yeah. So this week we don't have a guest. Instead, we got some articles that we thought we could talk through here. So some news from the past week. iPhone 12 Pro has come out. Daryl, have you put your order in for one yet?
I have not. I've for the first time, I think, ever, the existing phone that I have, which is iPhone 10, I went on one of those 2-year plans. I typically always just buy my own phone, so I have the ability to kind of move my plan around a little bit more and have more flexibility. And actually worked at TELUS on the wireless side many years ago, so I have a bit of a aversion to going into the locked-in program. So I did for the first time, and I think it comes up in January. To be honest, I'm probably going to buy it out again and just go. So at that point, I don't follow Apple quite as closely as you do. Now, didn't the 11 just come out around the same time? So they introduced 2 models at once, basically.
There's a 12 and a 12 Pro, and differences being the cameras. So 11 would have been last year.
Okay, this year. Also.
I get you on the contracts too. I actually just switched around my contract because I've been having overages, and I'm into a better suited contract now. But they're a lot more transparent around the cost of the contract versus how much you're actually paying towards a phone when they wrap you into these contracts. And so it, for folks, it's probably the difference between people who would rather just pay monthly for their car insurance versus just pay for their car insurance outright. Like, you can start to see, this is how they've done the math for amortizing your phone over the term of your contract, and why you have to buy it out at the end if you're trying to escape early.
Mm-hmm. So yeah. Interesting. Is the have you put in your order? I take it you're usually on top of these things, or
yeah, the last couple of years I've kind of hummed and hawed this. So this 12 Pro, I think the biggest thing, and there's the Max version for folks who want the big screen. I'm kind of over the big screens now, but the big thing is going to be camera stuff. The Pro actually incorporates LiDAR, so it uses lasers to figure out depth. And some of the challenge, now that I know a lot more about cameras, some of the challenges between small phone cameras and large cameras is going to be the sensor size. And so while things can say, hey, we're capturing a bunch of megapixels, that's all well and good, but still you have a sensor size that's going to be this big versus a true full frame 35 millimeter traditional sensor on there. So you can capture more, and when you capture more, you can the light that's captured allows you to create depth. And so that's why, people are familiar with, hey, they have a nice camera because the subject is in focus, but the background's blurry. And something like an iPhone has portrait mode because it replicates that through software instead. And the new Pro camera is going to use LiDAR or lasers to figure out depth. And so it can have more accuracy in trying to replicate that nice photo with, hey, the person's in the foreground and everything in the background is kind of blurred out to give the effect of a bigger camera. Also more colors and stuff. Another thing that I haven't really realized is important is having lots of colors. And so, yeah, I mean, it all comes down to how much quality do you want in the pictures that you take of your kids.
Yeah, no, it's a good point too. And I find when we're traveling just on vacation, we stop bringing cameras. Like all of the photos that we do are just on our phones, and the quality is good enough that it kind of captures what you're looking for. So yeah, it might be worth investing in.
Yeah. All right. Next thing we had. So, I've talked about this before, but I'm into CrossFit, and this past weekend was the 2020 CrossFit Games, where they crowned the most elite CrossFitter in the world. So for folks who aren't familiar, there's a guy named Matt Fraser. He was going for his 5th title in a row, which would have set a record. And Claire Toomey. Matt is from New England, I believe. And Claire Toomey is actually from New Zealand.
Okay.
And she is the 3-time reigning champ and was going for her 4th title. So the two of them won very decisively. It was almost comical how many points that they had come ahead in winning. But this article, I thought, we could bring up and talk through some of the workouts that they're doing. So for folks who want to look at CrossFit and have seen it from the CrossFit Games perspective, should not be intimidated, because these are things that are only really attempted at that level at the CrossFit Games. Otherwise, if you step into a CrossFit gym, you're going to be, starting off with whatever your coach prescribes for you to get going. But some of the events that they had, a corn sack sprint. So this was an uphill sprint, 320 meters with a 22 kilo corn sack that you'd have to carry, and however you want to carry. So I think the top times were in the mid 3-minute range for an uphill climb, very steep grade where they're at.
I have to think doing that with your shirt off. I've never carried a corn sack with my shirt off, but when you're sweaty, that's got to be relatively uncomfortable.
Yeah,
off your shirt if I was doing that. Not that I ever will.
Yeah, probably got some burns on the back from abrasions there.
Yeah.
They did something they called this the CrossFit Total, which was actually just kind of a spin on a powerlifting set of lifts. So they got a 1 rep max back squat, a shoulder press, strict shoulder press, and a deadlift. And then, they would just take the totals from that. So, some of these folks have totals of, let's see, the highest one, Jeffrey Adler, who's actually from Canada, the only Canadian there. There was only 5 competitors. He was 1,244 pounds. So I think he back squatted over 500 and deadlifted over 500 and shoulder pressed that much. Now, in comparison to like the top powerlifters, not as much as a top powerlifter, but these, this is meant to be very well-rounded athletes.
Yeah.
The ranch loop. Now, this was an interesting one. They did a run around this ranch that they were at. And what they did was the twist to this was it was a 3-mile run. Again, steep grades, different terrain. all throughout. The twist was that you get to the end of it, and the top time for the first lap was actually about 26 minutes, but the competitors didn't realize that they were only finishing their first lap. So they got to the end, thought they were done, and then the guy at the end there, Dave Castro, said, "Nope, actually, you're going to run this again, but in reverse." So after a soul-crushing run, and you're competing against 5 other folks and giving it your all, you find out you have to redo the entire thing or continue on with the entire thing.
Good God.
Yeah, it was a test of mental strength there. And then there is, skip those ones, there is a workout called Atalanta that they introduced. Now, some folks would be familiar with a workout called Murph, which CrossFit's big on honoring war heroes. So there's a guy named, there it is, Lieutenant Michael Murphy, who there's a movie about him called Lone Survivor. And he was played by Mark Wahlberg in that. And it was, there was a workout called Murph that went to honor Michael Murphy, which is a mile run, 100 air squats, just body weight squats, and then 200 push-ups and 300 pull-ups, I believe. And so they did a twist on that, a mile. And so that would normally take somebody 45 minutes to an hour. And they did a twist on this, a mile run, 100 handstand push-ups, so being inverted and doing push-ups on a vertical plane against the wall, 200 single leg squats. This is called a pistol in CrossFit terms, 300 pull-ups and 1 mile run. And this was done with 20-pound weight vest. And that was the finisher. So that was after 3 days of being brutally punished through all of these workouts. That was their final test at the end there.
Now,
so,
with that, so those handstand push-ups, that you've got to do 100 of them. Do you have to do 100 in a row, or could you do 5 sets of 20 or something like that, or is it?
Yeah, you can break it up however you want.
Okay.
You do have to do them. You do have to do that set of exercises together, though. So when people do something like Murph, a similar layout of workout, you can actually, most people will actually break it up in different ways. So they might do 5, 10, 15 of the 5 of the squats, and then 10 of the push-ups, and then 15 of the pull-ups. In this one here, you had to just go in order. So you had to do the whole 100 before you did any of the 200 stuff and the 300 stuff, which almost, it almost taxes you mentally, because you're kind of like, oh, this is never going to end when you're going through your 200 single leg squats there.
Yeah, that would never end if it was a normal person trying to do all that.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was that. But I would tell folks, if you're interested in CrossFit, you will never do any of these things unless you're already a super fit person. You would never do any of these things if you just walk into a CrossFit gym. That's all for show.
So those 2 people, I take it, they don't have jobs other than doing CrossFit training. I imagine they're fully funded and sponsored to.
Yeah, I'd say in the last 5 years. I'd say in the last six or 7 years or so, there's a lot more commercial aspect to it, like more sponsorships and stuff. So one of them, Matt Fraser, is sponsored by Nike, has a great contract there. Tia Claire Toomey has a few different sponsorships that she works with for shoes, apparel, and other things as well. So the top ones do good, and I would say everything below that, it trails off pretty quickly. I'd say the top, couple dozen people get paid, and then everybody else is trying to scratch their way up. And they might have figured out other ways to monetize what they do in fitness, like selling training programs and stuff like that. And at that point, you don't have to be the top one. You have to just be really good at marketing your fitness program. So the
CrossFit Games has survived all of that controversy that happened with the owner about a year ago, and
that was the summer. So CrossFit. So this is interesting, and it actually ties back to tech. So there's a guy named Eric Rosa, and he actually owned a CrossFit gym, and he actually owned a company that was purchased by Oracle a number of years ago. So he's actually I don't know if he's quite a billionaire. I think the company sold for $900 million.
Wow.
He kind of came in and saved the day. He didn't fund it himself. There's private equity backing him, but he is the CEO. They took it off of Greg Glassman's hands, who people can read about all the tribulations that he had this summer, and some of the words that he chose to use in statements. And now this guy is kind of revived CrossFit to where a lot of people would have said 2 years ago was more of a heyday for CrossFit. In the last couple of years, they were going in a direction of really focusing on health and kind of downplaying the games, which people once they're into it, they really like that, and they use the games as a marketing tool as well. And so he's kind of brought that back up, for marketing, but also just to give some people something to look for.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So maybe I'll skip ahead to this article here, which I thought was pretty interesting. BC film production industry now busier than pre-pandemic period. We talked about Netflix taking over Vancouver Film Studios, huge operation there. And then the article right beside it, massive new 600,000 square foot film studio to be built in Metro Vancouver. If you scroll down, what they mean by Metro Vancouver is actually Langley. And there's a Golden Ears Bridge, which means my house would be right up there or so. So that'll be pretty cool.
So you'll be able to be an extra in all sorts of films coming up.
Try to get a couple parts in there. Well, they might look for, they might try to get us to film the Daryl and Boo show in their studios. We'll have to work out a contract with them.
I would think it's only a matter of time. Yeah, we'll take up most of that space.
Yeah.
Very cool, though. It's, we said BC is, is an interesting place because there is no one real industry or market that dominates the economy or drives the economy. It's just a little bit of everything. Obviously, film production is one of those things. So great to see further investment and driving revenue for the Lower Mainland and the province of BC.
Yeah, I think as well. It's the film studios people will recognize off of the highway in the Vancouver Burnaby area. Having this out in the valley, people might think, maybe that's a little bit odd, but if you think about it now, like prices are starting to soften in Vancouver. We talked about this on the Booze Hour live stream that I had with Adam Scalina from Vancouver Real Estate Podcast, and then prices are going up as you go east. And so as the populace starts to move out there, this becomes kind of like Langley becomes a really key point for folks. We have Surrey, which is great. And Surrey is ever growing. But Langley has this, if we go back to that map, Langley has this very dense area right off of the highway there. They're able to find land for that. There's a whole bunch of area here. I'm sure it's ALR land, but if that got rezoned, that strip of the highway there could become, very, very lucrative and maybe another business hub, maybe a tech hub. Obviously, it's going to be a movie hub at this point.
Yeah, it is definitely interesting. I mean, Langley, I really like the way that they've continued to develop the area. They seem to really be conscious of keeping a bit of a theme and just the overall aesthetics of it as it's continued to grow, because it's grown quite quickly. And quite often when you do see cities grow quickly, but they lose that. They just lose that that continuity and just kind of an overall theme, which I think they've kind of kept quite nicely in Langley. So yeah, I'm sure that area is just going to continue to grow.
Yeah. Let's see. We actually have a comment here from Bill Kempthorne. Actually, now this is an old one. Never seemed to get a good discounted plan for those of us that pay full price for a phone. You know what? I was reading about when I was looking to rejig my plan there, and there, it's well documented on the internet previously, the retention plans. So you call in, say some magic words to your phone provider, and they will offer you plans that are, kept under wraps for trying to keep folks with their service. Apparently in April, they got rid of retention plans. They have a couple customer service plans, but I think they were, I'm not sure, just calling people's bluffs or what have you. And there almost seems like collusion. I shouldn't say that, but
but it's true.
These are great customers of F5 as well. But there just seems to be an odd similarity between phone plans between the providers.
Yeah, and I guess there's for the providers, you kind of feel for them. They are somewhat restricted by the governing bodies that kind of tell them what they can and can't do. So you've got to try and manage profitability around that. But I know to Bill's point, probably 5 years ago, you could do, and there was especially like I said, I worked at TELUS. You could be switched to another group, and they could quickly look at your revenue and decide if they want to try and make an effort to kind of keep you as a client. And all of a sudden, better plans kind of pop up. But I'm sure, like you said, those are probably harder to get access to now. But yeah, it's just the way it is. I think overall in Canada, we still pay a fairly reasonable price, and we have very good quality wireless internet. So in a couple of years, you just have to bite the bullet, I suppose.
Yeah, that is, for the new iPhone, I forgot to mention that, but it is 5G capable now. And so it's, that's really fast. Hold on. What is this? 5G is 20 gig per second.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah. My home internet, I thought, was fast at 1 gig. It is fast at 1 gig. 20 gigs is that'll suck up a data plan pretty quickly.
Yes, yeah, that's true. That's going to be obviously the deciding factor on everyone's plan is just how much data are you able to consume.
Yeah. Cool. All right. I think that is it for today. Thanks everybody for checking this out, and we will see everybody next week. Next week, we'll have on David Warburton from the F5 Labs team. So we actually had him on a Booze Hour live stream, and we actually had Katie Newbold, who is working with David on the SSL analyzer tool, TLS analyzer tool. And so David is actually going to come back on and talk about the 2020 phishing report from F5 Labs that was just released. So that should be good.
Very interesting.
Yeah. All right, folks. Otherwise, have a great week. See you.
Bye, folks. Thank you.
Thanks for checking this out today. If you're watching via YouTube right now, go ahead and click subscribe down below. Also click the bell for notifications. That way you will find out when we are dropping a new video or when we're going live. Also, there's darylandboo.com. If you head over to that, leave your name and email address, we will drop a weekly technical newsletter in your inbox every Monday. Also, this is available via podcast, Apple, Google, Spotify. Head over to one of those, hit subscribe, and you'll be able to listen to us in the car on your commute or during a walk or a run. Thank you very much, and we will see you next time.